Stay cool and choose from over 40 in-stock ceiling fans for under $100, plus an 11% rebate at Menards. We carry the largest selection of in-stock Hunter ceiling fans, available in a variety of designs, finishes, and features. Create the perfect look and lighting for any room with a new Hunter ceiling fan. Visit Menards.com and view our entire selection of Hunter ceiling fans, plus the weekly flyer and other great deals going on now.
Save big money at Menards.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a good day. It's Thursday, baby. Oh, man, one more day, and then it's the weekend. Oh, man. I don't know what I'm doing this weekend, but I know I'm ready for it. But something else that I've been ready for, you've been ready for, I think something we've all been ready for, is this Colts and Cardinals joint practice. Day one, of course, being yesterday. They'll have another joint practice today. I know Kent Sterling is set to join Dan Dockage's show at 2 o'clock. He was out there last night just to talk about everything that happened. I've been reading, looking at videos, doing all the things that I need to do to brief you on everything that happened last night at that Colts and Cardinals joint practice. And everything that I've read, every video that I've seen, every press conference that I listened to, seemed like Anthony Richardson had a really good day yesterday. Based on every video I saw, everything I read, it sounds like in one-on-ones, the Colts receivers were able to get open, create separation, and then Anthony Richardson was able to throw the ball right on the money. I mean, I saw some throws. There's a deep ball he threw to Michael Pittman Jr., defender draped all over him. I mean, he just dropped it in the bucket. It was really impressive. I mean, it was an incredible throw. I don't want to get overly wrapped up in one thing that happened, but it seems like there were good signs from the Colts yesterday against this Arizona Cardinals defense. In 11-11, Anthony Richardson finished 6 for 8 with a touchdown. The touchdown was apparently a 30-yard throw to Michael Pittman Jr. That's a great sign. Okay, like being able to convert on these big chunk plays is important. I do think that, if Michael Pittman Jr. wants to be considered a real number one wide receiver, he has to be better in the red zone. Okay, I don't think that you can push back or disagree on the idea that between the 20s, he's a great player. 100 receptions, over 1,000 receiving yards last year. You would think that would convert to more than 4 touchdowns, but hey, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but he's also said, throughout the offseason that he wants to be better in the red zone. And, this is hopefully an indication that that's going to happen. It seems like 7-on-7s went well on top of it. Okay, like I know he had a 60-yard touchdown pass to Anthony Gould, who is fast. The dude can absolutely move. And it seems like Anthony Richardson had a great day throwing the football yesterday, especially deep down the field. And Colts receiver Michael Pittman Jr. confirmed that after the practice.
Oh yeah, I mean, AR was great today. I mean, from one-on-ones like to that last one. I mean, we completed every go ball that we threw today between me and him.
Michael Pittman Jr. there talking about Anthony Richardson and the success that they found on the deep balls, which is important. And look, I don't want to buy into this stuff too much. I don't want to get overly excited because Anthony Richardson is still a young quarterback, and young players are usually up and down. Usually, not always. So I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high here. And so I'm also going to add in here that this is what should happen at practice. Okay, you should complete most of your passes, even if you're playing against, a different defense. You should complete most of them. You should. Okay, this isn't a real game when butts get a little tighter and all that good stuff. This is what should happen at practice. Okay, and I gotta be honest, I don't put too much weight into how the Colts look in 7-on-7s because it's not real football. You can't tackle the guy. Everyone knows that you're throwing the ball, so the linebackers aren't taking, a precautionary step forward, or they're not taking half a second to figure out if it's run or pass. So the defense is just a tad bit different. There's no defensive line bearing down on the quarterback. It's not the real thing. Can you learn things in 7-on-7? Sure. I think that you learn more about receivers than you do quarterbacks in those spots, just because, like I said, there's no defensive line bearing down on the quarterback. They're just counting 1, 2, 3, sack. That's just kind of how it works. It's not real football. But that being said, I would rather hear that the Colts did well in 7-on-7 offensively than that they did terribly. There were some other reports of explosive plays. Like I said, the 30-yard touchdown to Pittman, the 60-yard bomb to Anthony Gould in 7-on-7. There's a video out there of A.D. Mitchell making just an incredible over-the-shoulder catch on a go ball. I mean, just some incredible stuff. And Shane Steichen was asked about the explosive plays that happened during yesterday's practice when he was at the podium.
I think there's a lot of potential. You know what I mean? We did a deep dive in the offseason, just trying to look at more explosive, trying to be more explosive in the pass game with obviously the weapons that we have and adding AD. It's been good. So you kind of saw that come to light a little bit today, and we just got to keep improving that.
Shane Steichen there talking about having more explosive plays, which is really important. It's so incredibly important, especially for this Colts team. I think that when we look at the best offenses in the NFL, they are great at generating these explosive plays. Okay, the Rams generate so many explosive plays with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. The Chiefs have so much speed on the outside that they do a great job of generating big plays. When we look at the Miami Dolphins, another one of the best offenses in the NFL, they generate a ton of big, explosive 20, 30-yard gains. It makes offense so much easier. Which makes sense, right? If you're going 30 yards in one play as opposed to 30 yards in 4 plays, there's obviously less room for error there, right? And that is, I think, going to be kind of the name of the game for the Colts this year. The Colts need explosive plays, whether that's through throwing the football or through running the football, because I want Anthony Richardson to be awesome. I really do. But he's 22. There are some accuracy concerns. Okay, we saw that in preseason week 1. Seems like the accuracy was good yesterday, but the accuracy concerns are there. And because of that, I don't know about you, but I do not trust Anthony Richardson to complete, 7 or 8 passes on a drive. I just don't. I don't think he's consistent enough to do that yet. And that's okay because he's only 22. And when the Colts drafted him, they knew he was going to be a project. They knew that he was a guy that they were going to have to develop over time. But he is a guy, based off of everything that happened yesterday, that he can complete some 30, 40-yard passes down the field, which then, reduces how efficient you have to be in throwing the football. Okay, so nice to hear that the Colts are, doing well on some of these big explosive plays. And look, the Colts offense should be explosive. It really should be. You got a dynamic quarterback who's capable of using his legs. You've got a guy in Jonathan Taylor who's had great seasons in the past. And then you've got Josh Downs, who I know isn't playing right now, but he'll be back for the majority of the season. Like, that's a guy with 4.4 speed. And then you got Anthony Gould. That's a guy with 4.3 speed. And then you got a guy in A.D. Mitchell who also has 4.3 speed. Like, there is a significant amount of speed on this Colts roster at these skill positions. Like, they've got dudes that can absolutely book it. And when you have that, like, you have to use that to your advantage. And I think that's going to look like some of these big explosive plays that the Colts had yesterday against the Cardinals. We'll see if they can repeat it today. I know that they're set to practice again at some point. I have to be honest, though. While everyone, on Twitter is going nuts, over the moon excited about all these big explosive pass plays, the number of tweets that I saw about the Adonai Mitchell catch and the 30-yard touchdown pass to Michael Pittman Jr. and, the 60-yard touchdown pass to Anthony Gould, like, saw so much excitement out of that. I got to be honest, like, as great as that stuff is, because that stuff is great, the thing that I was most excited about yesterday was something that I didn't see. Didn't see a single tweet, didn't see a single report about Anthony Richardson running the ball. That brings a smile to my face. That's awesome to hear. Now, when I went back and I listened to Shane Steichen's post-practice press conference, say that three times fast, he mentioned one long run that Richardson had, but for the most part, Anthony Richardson stood in the pocket and he threw the football. I love that so incredibly much. It's awesome. That's the thing that we need to hear and we want to hear coming out of these practices. I don't want him running the ball. It's a waste of a rep, right? You're in the red, don't touch me jersey. As soon as you take off and you scramble, someone like barely touches you and then they're like, balls down, do it again, right? And you just kind of waste the rep. And there's no question about Anthony Richardson's ability to run the ball. None whatsoever. If you think Anthony Richardson is incapable of running the ball, you're just a hater. Okay? Because, like, the dude is physically gifted, big, fast, all those things. Like, he can definitely run the ball. The question is, can you throw the ball? Okay? We get it. We know that he can run it. Can he throw it? And practice is where you figure that out. Practice is where you work on the ability to throw the ball accurately. And it seems like that's what Anthony Richardson did yesterday. It seems like he had a lot of success in throwing the ball as well. So excited, so glad to hear that he wasn't leaving the pocket just looking to run. No, he stood in the pocket and he delivered the football. Okay, to Michael Pittman Jr. and Anthony Gould and some of the tight ends. And I mean, it seems like he really had a great day. And A.D. Mitchell continues to impress people. Okay, I'm once again assuming that you saw the video where he, makes this like diving, over the shoulder catch in the end zone and one-on-ones. Great throw, even better catch. Hopefully you saw the video. If not, just go search Colts on Twitter and it'll pop up immediately. Okay, and it's awesome. And So I after seeing the clips and reading everything, I felt pretty good about the day that A.D. Mitchell had. And then I went back and I'm listening to some of the press conference stuff. Listen to what Michael Pittman Jr. had to say about Adonai Mitchell.
His releases are like the best I've seen. I've actually been studying him because he's so good at it. And that's something that I noticed from like day one, because we were actually in California so we were doing one-on-one reps and he was killing everybody. And I was like, this dude's going to be good. So
that was Michael Pittman Jr. there talking about Adonai Mitchell and the releases. I think that football's so interesting because there are so many little intricacies that we don't really get to see on TV. And because of the camera angle, I think that we only really see receivers at the top of their routes or after the ball is thrown. But getting open starts at the line of scrimmage. And the sooner you get open, the better. Okay, and it's nice to hear that A.D. Mitchell is good at these things. Everything I read on Twitter pointed to the exact same thing. And for Michael Pittman Jr., a guy who's had success in the NFL, to come out and be like, no, I'm legitimately studying this guy. I think that's just more proof that Adonai Mitchell is going to be a good, legitimate wide receiver in the NFL. I know he wasn't super dynamic in the first preseason game. That's fine. Seems like he had a good day yesterday against the Arizona Cardinals and their secondary. It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear that A.D. Mitchell is good at these things. Even though I'd argue that fans don't really care about releases, but it's an important part of playing receiver in the NFL. So based off the reports, based off the videos that we've seen, it seems like the offense had a pretty good day yesterday. Defense, though, not the same. Everything that I read pointed to, I think, exactly what I said here on the show. The defensive line was dominant, and the secondary was awful. No surprise there. No one's surprised. I know Dallas Flowers had an interception. Julian Blackman had an interception. And that was like apparently the only thing that went right for the Colts yesterday. They need help in the secondary. They need an incredible amount of help in the secondary. It was to a point, I sat down last night and I was like, okay, Chris Ballard won't do this, so I'm going to do it for him. Chris, listen up, buddy. Here are a list of cornerbacks and safeties that the Colts could add to their roster right now to make their defense better. Xavier Howard. I don't care about the whole video mom thing. Don't care at all. I want to be good at football. Stephon Gilmore, a guy who had a lot of success here in Indianapolis a few years ago. Bring him back. Give him a contract. Let's go. Adoree Jackson, 28 years old. Let's go. Bring him in. All three of those guys are better than Dallas Flowers. Okay? Get those guys in the building. All three of those guys are cornerbacks who could come in and have a positive impact from day one amongst the three. I'd prefer Stephon Gilmore because he's played under Gus Bradley before. He's been in Indy. He knows what it's like. Let's bring him back. The only concern is they are a little bit older. Okay, Adoree Jackson is the youngest of them at 28, but all three of them are better than what the Colts currently have at corner. When it comes to safeties, Justin Simmons, still waiting on the report that says that Justin Simmons is coming to Indianapolis for a visit. He's visited Atlanta. He's visited New Orleans. Okay, bring him to Indy. Let's figure out if we can get him here. Okay, and maybe Justin Simmons is a little bit too expensive. It's okay. I've got other solutions for you. Micah Hyde had a really good career in Buffalo, or Jaron Kearse. All three of those guys could step in and be better options than Nick Cross immediately. Seriously, like this is clearly the glaring weakness on this Colts roster, and it's something that desperately needs to be addressed. Okay, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., a rookie, just came up here and torched the defense yesterday. Absolutely torched them. Unless the defensive line got pressure, and I don't want that to be buried in all of this, but we've been talking about this secondary for months now. Okay, everyone with a set of eyes can identify that this secondary is awful. Absolutely terrible. And yet Chris Ballard, he's going to sit up in his office and twirl his long hair like, I wonder what we should do next. You know what we should do next? We should go sign a wide receiver and another pass rusher. That's what we should do, because that's what he did yesterday. Instead of beefing up the secondary, Chris Ballard and the Colts decided to go out and sign wide receiver Greg Ward and edge rusher Derek Rivers. Now, I'll be honest, with the Josh Downs injury, I don't mind them adding a guy like Greg Ward. Okay, like, add a little bit more depth there while Josh Downs is out, all those things. That's important. But they don't need another edge rusher. That's the last thing that they need. They need help on the back end. And for whatever reason, Chris Ballard continues to refuse to acknowledge that. And it's going to be to the detriment of this Indianapolis Colts team. They need help on the back end, and they've got to do something at some point to go out and to address that. Speaking of Chris Ballard, he went on another local Indianapolis radio show yesterday and revealed some information on Anthony Richardson. I'm going to get into that when we come back here in about 4 minutes. The Real Jonathan Smith Show, Indy's Sports Ticket.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in no matter how you are. You know, YouTube, probably the best way. Head over there, Indy's Sports Ticket. Subscribe to the channel. Join the live stream. Come on. Having a great time over here. I love radio. I love my job. It's the best job in the world. Otter Creek, shout out to you, man. I don't know, man. Otter Creek thinks that I should join Ballard and grow out my hair until he signs a star free agent. I'll lose all my hair before that happens. It's slowly going away. It's slowly but surely happening. Chris Ballard, if you can hear me. Wait, what am I saying? If I know you can, go out, sign somebody in the secondary. Please, I'm begging you, man, because the Colts desperately need it. C. Fitch, thanks for the assist. Apparently, Chris Ballard went on local Indianapolis radio and said that he liked what they had in the secondary. And, you know, I'm very hesitant to say that I can do anything better than anyone, but I'm at a point where I think I could acquire talent a little bit better than Chris Ballard. But, hey, man, what do I know? What do I know? I just know that this Colts defense has been horrendously bad these last 2 years, but, hey. You know, whatever. Anyway, Chris Ballard went on another local radio show yesterday and talked a little bit about Anthony Richardson, unveiled kind of the plan for him to play during the preseason. Basically, he said that Anthony Richardson likely will not play on Saturday, but he'll play a full half on Thursday. I got to be honest. I like this. I like the way that they're managing Anthony Richardson with all of this. I think there's a certain amount that you want for young quarterbacks to play in the preseason to know how they look heading into the actual season. And I like the idea of putting it all on the table all at once. I think a little over a half is about the right amount of time plus joint practices, right? Because Anthony Richardson should get a decent amount of live reps this week as they take on this Arizona Cardinals defense every day in practice. He doesn't need, you know, to go through all these joint practice reps and then play extra in the game on Saturday. Okay, so I like the idea of first preseason game, play 2 drives, get the feet wet, kind of get the nerves out, get on the field, just feel what it's like to be back on the field once again. Okay, I like that. Okay, see what he looks like. And then moving into joint practice, okay, like what does he look like against a different defense? Where can we improve? Where does he need to get better? What did he miss? What did he do well? Being able to dive into all that with a young quarterback like Anthony Richardson, I think is good. Then you can go back, you can watch the film, and then give him a full half to play, right? Let him correct those mistakes. Let him just get out in front of a real crowd again. And more importantly, like allow him to find some rhythm. Okay, because I'm sure that there are some other teams out there that, you know, whoever their starting quarterback is, they'll play a little over a half, but they'll kind of splice it up between the 3 games. I like the idea of putting Anthony Richardson out there for an entire half because it allows you to find a rhythm. Okay, it's kind of like pinch hitting. Like if you're only playing 1 drive, tough to find a rhythm. Really tough. But if you're playing in, you know, for an entire half, you know, if things are rocky that first possession, like there's no worries because you know that you're going to be able to get back out there again. So I like the approach to this. I will say part of me doesn't like if I could change anything about it, the idea of him playing in the 3rd preseason game, I might change just because if he gets hurt, you got a week and a half until your first actual game, which is, I wouldn't call it an issue, but you know, I'd rather him play the first half of this of the 2nd preseason game. So if he does get a little nicked up, he's got a little extra time to recover. And I do think that that's a fair concern given that Anthony Richardson struggles to stay healthy. But anyway, I digress on that. Other news in Indianapolis that broke yesterday, outside of, you know, our guy Anthony Richardson playing a little bit during, you know, the preseason. The great city of Indianapolis will host the 2025 All-Star Weekend. The Caitlin Clark effect continues on. It continues on. Okay, she's the biggest star in the WNBA. by far. It's not really close. Okay, she's hands down the biggest star in the WNBA. She should have played in the Olympics. I heard a report the other day. Viewership for everything was up in the Olympics, except for women's basketball. Feels like the world of women's basketball, the WNBA, missed out on a real opportunity to grow the game, because I promise you that if Caitlin Clark had played on that team, everyone would have tuned in. Okay, I got to be honest. I watched the last 4 minutes of their gold medal game against France. That was it, because I knew that they were going to thump everybody else. And guess what? They thumped everybody else. And it just feels like the WNBA and women's basketball missed out on a real opportunity to grow their game because of what is simply pettiness. But the WNBA returns tonight. The Fever do not play tonight, however. They'll continue their season tomorrow night when they host at home, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Phoenix Mercury. And now we get to, talk about our favorite thing in sports, expectations. What are the expectations for Caitlin Clark entering the second half of her season? Okay, what is she going to look like heading into the playoffs? How is she going to look post this long month break that she really needed? And my expectations are pretty simple. I expect her to be better than what she was before the Olympic break. Okay, time off, rest, vacationing is super important. Okay, I don't know about you, but I know for me, when I come back from vacation, I'm always rejuvenated. I just feel better. Okay, I think everyone kind of goes through that. And for Caitlin Clark, I think we're going to see a pretty similar thing from her. I think she's going to play great tomorrow night just because she's had a bunch of time off. And you know that she wants to prove that, she was more than worthy of being on the Olympic team. And I think one of the biggest improvements that we're going to see from her is that we're going to see less turnovers. She was averaging about 5.5 turnovers a game before the break. She's had a lot of time to rest, because I think that when we think about rest, we think about it very much from this physical standpoint of like your body wears down and you get tired, which is true. That does happen. But I think mentally, people get tired as well, okay? Especially when you're playing point guard where you're making a million decisions every single game. So not only the break for her physically is going to be good, but I think mentally, I'm sure that the Fever obviously had practice over the month-long break. They were all together. I'm sure that they watched a lot of film, right? That's a real opportunity for Caitlin Clark to sit back and be like, okay, this is how they're defending this screen and roll, and this is how they're defending this coverage. Like, that mental rest combined with time to really go back, watch film, and learn is awesome. I think that it was very much needed for her. And obviously, the physical rest is going to be important for her as well. I think she's going to shoot the lights out when she comes back. I really do. I think she's going to shoot it way better. She kind of found her stroke towards kind of the end of, her time before the Olympic break. And look, she only shot 33% from three. It's not very good. It's not. It's, pretty average, right? If we're being nice about it. I think she's going to shoot the ball way better. I think that's really where we're going to see that physical rest really help her. Okay, because rest does amazing things for players. I think she'll come back. She'll be better focused. She'll be just in better shape to actually play basketball. And I'm excited, extra time to practice, just the Fever, because none of the Fever were on the Olympic team. So can't wait to see what the Fever look like coming back from, this Olympic break, and excited for next year when they host WNBA's All-Star Weekend. Another fantastic event going on right now is the Little League World Series. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I think this is one of the best events in sports, period. Okay, I played Little League, right? If someone tells you that your kid has to play travel ball to be good at baseball, that's a load of crap. It's not true. The Little League World Series is awesome. It's one of the best sporting events out there. I think it checks a lot of the boxes of what people want for sports to be. Okay, the Little League World Series is sports in its purest form. Everything that we want professional sports to be is in this event. Everyone that plays, coaches in the Little League World Series wants to win. And look, there are athletes out there. They're not out there to win. They're out there to collect their check. That's why they're there. Okay? Some of them are purely motivated by money. And when you watch the Little League World Series, no one's getting paid. Literally everyone out there, umpires, coaches, everyone out there, the grounds crew, all of them are volunteers. And when you sit back and when you watch the event, it's about three things. It's about having fun, which is what sports should ultimately be about, especially when you're a kid. Okay? Like you go out to, some of these, travel baseball tournaments and stuff, and it's not about kids having fun. Seriously. And when you're, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, that's what it should only be about. Right? Because sports, at the end of the day, are a game. And games are supposed to be fun. Okay, so when you watch Little League World Series, there's such an emphasis on that. It's really nice. It's refreshing. Okay, it's also very much about winning. Like, these kids are competitive. Okay, they cry when they lose, which can be viewed as soft, I guess. I view it more as this kid expected to win and he wanted to win. Okay, like, you don't get emotional about something that you don't care about. So I think that these kids clearly care about it. It's also about sportsmanship. I got to be honest, some of the sportsmanship stuff really kind of like upsets me. Like a couple years ago, a kid gave up a home run and then he high-fived the kid that hit the home run off of him. That's a bit much for me from the sportsmanship, perspective, but at the same time, like, it's so nice. It's so pure. The players are good. Like, I was watching yesterday, there's a kid from Mexico throwing 77 miles an hour, which reaction time, when you obviously, because they're not playing from, on 90-foot bases and all that, so the mound's a little bit closer. When you do like the MLB reaction time stuff, it's the equivalent to like a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. Like, the kids are chucking it. The kids can swing it. Like, the players are legitimately good. And it's combined with, the rest of, the competitiveness and just these kids having fun. It's a great event. Everyone should watch it. I'm tuned into it. I'm going to watch every game that I can. We had it on in the studio yesterday during Dan's show. Game started at 1. I'm assuming they start at the same time today. Got to be honest, haven't looked yet, but I'm going to during this break, and I'm going to watch it today because it is, once again, a fantastic event, the Little League World Series. Everyone should tune in and watch it. Now, there's a take that I've been hinting at. I hadn't really gone out and firmly put my foot in the ground on it, but I'm going to today. I've got that take for you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a nice day. Kevin Potts joining me top of the hour. 49ers fan, NFL football extraordinaire. That's not the right word. But he loves the NFL, and we are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Brandon Aiyuk saga and all those things. And over the past few weeks, I've really kind of toyed with this take. I've gone back and forth. I've teased it. I've mentioned it a couple times. You know, I got to be honest, man. My butt's hurting. I've been sitting on the fence on this, and I'm ready to get on a specific side. Every year in the NFL, on average, 7 teams that made the playoffs the previous year will miss the playoffs the next year. So that's half the teams. We're going to get 7 new teams in the playoffs this year. That's what the numbers tell us is going to happen. And, you know, the teams that'll quote unquote make the leap, you know, hopefully the Colts are part of that. Hopefully they can rejoin the playoffs for the first time in way too long. But a team that I think will not make the playoffs this year is the San Francisco 49ers. I am officially in this boat. I think they're going to miss the playoffs. And I've got a few different reasons for that I'm going to run through. Once again, Kevin Potts joining me here in about 20 minutes. He is a 49ers fan. I'm going to run all this by him. Should be a great conversation. You're not going to want to miss that. That's coming up here in about 20 minutes. 49ers, they've been noisy all offseason. Okay, and I get it. It's guys wanting new contracts. They're like, oh, that happens everywhere. Doesn't matter. It's still noisy. It's still loud. The more drama, the worse you are. It's just kind of the way that things seem to go. Trent Williams wanted a new contract, and San Francisco obliged immediately. And now Brandon Aiyuk's like, I want a new contract. And they're like, no. He's like, fine, then trade me. No, don't trade me. Trade me. No, don't trade me. Trade me. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's noisy. It's loud. It's not good. In addition to that, the 49ers have more players on their roster in their 30s than any other team in the NFL. They are old. 30 is that number where players start to decline. Okay, that's the number where players start to get hurt just a little bit more. Okay, and when they get hurt, because they're a little bit older, it takes them longer to recover. And when we look at these core pieces for the San Francisco 49ers, they're old. George Kittle, who's battled injuries his entire career, is 30. Trent Williams, who's been beaten up these past couple years. Look, he's the best left tackle in football, but he's been beaten up. He's 36. He's the oldest player on their roster. Do you really think that guy is going to stay healthy the entire year? I don't. Deebo Samuel, 28, with a lengthy injury history. I can't remember a season where Deebo Samuel did not get hurt. He gets hurt every single year. Christian McCaffrey, 28 years old, a lengthy injury history. That's why he's not in Carolina anymore. He couldn't stay healthy. Okay, they are old, and I get it. There's a lot of people out there who love and swear by Brock Purdy. Great for you. I got to be honest. I don't think he's that great. I think he's good. I think he's fine. I think the only reason why he appears to be great is because of Kyle Shanahan. And if you don't believe me, everyone thought that Jimmy Garoppolo was great when he played for Kyle Shanahan. And then, he bounced around the league a little bit, and he's once again back to being a backup quarterback. Okay, the 49ers will not make the playoffs this year. They're old. All their key players have lengthy injury histories. Okay, and Christian McCaffrey is their offense, and he's been through it. He's been hit over and over and over again throughout his entire career, and he's been hurt a lot. Christian McCaffrey, these last 2 years, though, he's been pretty healthy. Okay, these last 2 seasons, he's had over 300 touches, right? So, over 300 total carries combined between, actually receiving the football and going out in routes and catching the ball. The following season, the last time that he did that, he got hurt and missed most of the season. Okay, running backs age quickly. That's part of why teams don't want to pay them. Okay, and let's be honest. When we watch the San Francisco 49ers play football, it is all about Christian McCaffrey. How do we get him the ball? What are they going to do when he gets hurt? Because I'm telling you, it's going to happen this year. They're not getting 300 touches out of 28-year-old Christian McCaffrey. It's not happening. He's not going to last. Okay? So they're old. Brock Purdy, I don't think is that dude. Their core players all have lengthy injury histories, and they're only getting older. Christian McCaffrey's bound to get hurt this year. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. The other thing, last point here. The NFC, not terrible anymore. These last 2 years, the NFC has been awful, atrocious. Okay, hands down the worst of the two conferences. Okay, you know, it's really funny how the NFL works. All of the really good quarterbacks have ended up in the AFC, right? Which means all the better teams have been in the AFC, which leads to the bad teams in the NFC getting really high draft picks. So they rebuild their rosters just a little bit quicker. Okay, and look, like these past couple of years, the 49ers have been heads and shoulders above everybody in their conference. It hasn't really been close. That's not the case this year. The Rams are the best team in the NFC West. They're younger, they have a better quarterback, and they have a better head coach. Okay, when we look at just, you know, that division as a whole, the Cardinals are going to be better this year. The Seahawks, telling you, they hired a new young coach that I think is going to hit pretty quickly. They're young, they're talented. You can say, well, they have Geno Smith. Doesn't matter. They're still going to be better than what they were last year. The Cardinals are going to be better than what they were last year because they're not going to be running Josh Dobbs out there for half the season. It's going to be, hopefully, Kyler Murray, who had a pretty good practice yesterday against the Indianapolis Colts. So that NFC West alone is much, much better. Okay, but the NFC as a whole, man, the Packers, Super Bowl threat. If Jordan Love continues doing what he was doing the second half of last season, Packers could be the best team in the NFC. Staying in that division, the NFC North, the Detroit Lions almost beat the 49ers last year in the NFC Championship game, and they bring everybody back. They bring both coordinators back. The Lions are a legitimate Super Bowl threat. The Eagles, if their coordinators, if they're better than what they were last year, guess what? That team is a Super Bowl threat. Okay, the talent and just the overall competition in the NFC is so much better. Okay, the Cowboys, a lot of noise going on down there. They're gonna figure out the CeeDee Lamb stuff here at some point. They're no slouch. They're gonna be tough. I think the Bears are gonna be good. Okay, not, you know, make the playoffs good, but they'll win 8 games, 8-9, 9-8, maybe they sneak in. Like the Bears are no slouch. The Falcons, big addition yesterday. They go out, they trade a 3rd-round pick for Judon from New England, a really good pass rusher. The one thing that the Falcons didn't have was a pass rusher. Now they have that. Bringing in Kirk Cousins, who should be pretty good, right? And they've got a ton of weapons on that roster. The Falcons are going to be better this year. The Buccaneers, they won that division last year. What are they going to look like? I'll be honest, I don't think they're going to be very good. But still, like you have to at least, like when you see them on your schedule, at least be a little curious of like, oh man, the NFC, much, much better this year, so much deeper than what it was last year. Because let's be honest, when you looked at the NFC last year, you saw the 49ers and you could just like, go ahead, put them in pen, put them in the Super Bowl. Okay, they were hands down better than everybody else. On top of that, injury luck for the 49ers last year was actually pretty good. Like George Kittle, healthier than he normally was. Christian McCaffrey played in every game except for one, if I remember correctly. Okay? Like the injury luck for the 49ers last year was really good. That's not going to happen again when you look at the guys on their team and the amount of injuries that these guys have had. Okay? I'm telling y'all, 49ers will not make the playoffs this year. It's not going to happen. Okay. Now, I was going to throw the Vikings on that list of NFC teams that I think are going to be pretty good this year. But then, these last 5 weeks have just been really tough for the Vikings. Okay. Like if you're a Vikings fan, I feel so terrible for you. Okay. Like it's got to be the worst there. They draft a corner. He dies in, I believe, a car accident, if I remember correctly. Like that's terrible. And then one of their starting corners tears his ACL in their first practice. Then in their second practice, their other corner gets injured. And then TJ Hawkinson, their awesome tight end, a guy that I was totally going to draft in fantasy, he gets hurts his knee. Okay, and then Jordan Addison, their number 2 wide receiver who had a great rookie year last year, he gets carted off the field. And then another wide receiver gets hurt yesterday. And then they find out that J.J. McCarthy had to have a meniscus repair. So now he's out for the season. I mean, oh, man. Like, no matter what happens to the Colts this year, no one has it worse than Minnesota, man. It's brutal. I feel terrible for them. Seriously, because like you create all this excitement and all this hype and just this essence of like, I can't wait for football season. And then these guys, they go out to, practice and, you're excited. It's like, oh man, like what are they going to look like in this joint practice? And then it's like, they're going to look like they all belong in a hospital with all the injuries that happened. And it's terrible. And it brings me back to the Colts here. Day 2, joint practice today. Do not get hurt. I get it. It happens all the time to these guys, right? Football, it's a physical sport. You're hitting other dudes, all that kind of stuff. Don't care. Do not get hurt. Nick Cross, 7-on-7s. Don't go to the ground. You especially, Nick Cross. But just terrible, terrible news coming out of Vikings camp because, like, to start the season, you kind of want teams to be healthy because it just gives you a better overall product. And look, I was really excited to watch the Vikings play this year. I was excited to see J.J. McCarthy and what he looked like with Justin Jefferson. And I was excited to see what Jordan Addison looked like in year 2. And we're not going to get to see a lot of that. Instead, we're going to get to see Sam Darnold, who I am optimistic about. I do think that there's a world where Sam Darnold has a lot of success. But, we'll have to wait and see kind of what ends up happening there. Colts, Cardinals, day 2 of joint practice today. I want a repeat of what happened yesterday. I want for Anthony Richardson to continue to dice up this Arizona Cardinals defense. I want to continue to hear about how dominant this defensive line was. Because that to me, like those were the 2 biggest takeaways coming out of yesterday. Anthony Richardson threw the ball well, on time, on target, didn't look to scramble, stayed in the pocket, and consistently threw the ball. Okay? That and man, Leatu Latu and these other defensive ends got after Kyler Murray in 11-on-11. Okay? So those 2 things, I hope that those continue to be true. When it comes to the secondary, we can pray. I prayed this morning. Probably should have mentioned the Colts secondary in there. Okay? Like they've got to figure out something on the back end of that defense, man. Like I don't know how you can continue to sit back, watch these training camps unfold, and say that you like your guys. Okay? This goes back to the Clemson analogy that I made yesterday. I called the Indianapolis Colts and the Clemson Tigers, their college football team, the exact same thing. Dabo Swinney stands at the podium and he pounds the table and he says that they're fine. And because of that, he refuses to go out into the transfer portal. And because of that, Clemson is no longer a dominant college football program. Okay, because of Dabo Swinney's refusal to go out into the transfer portal and add good players. Okay, and it's the same thing with the Colts. There's a refusal to go out into free agency and add good players. And that's why, as long as Chris Ballard is the GM, success for the Colts is going to be hard to come by. Going out and adding free agents is the best thing that you can do for your team. It does 2 things. 1, it brings in a better player. 2, it increases competition. Like, if Justin Simmons showed up in that locker room tomorrow and, put a Colts uniform on, I guarantee you that Nick Cross and those other free safeties would practice so much harder because they knew that there was real, legit competition in the locker room. Okay? Like, you have to do everything that you can to bring in better players, because bringing in better players doesn't just raise your floor, but it also inspires the other players at that position to practice and play harder. And that is also wildly important because you need to build depth. You need it. But, I guess Chris Ballard doesn't see things that way, and that's why we're probably looking down the barrel at another 9-8, 8-9 season from the Indianapolis Colts. 5 minutes, Kevin Potts is joining me. Talk a little Brandon Aiyuk stuff, general NFL discussion. All that stuff is coming your way here in 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday. I know I am. Having just the best time. Joining me now, Kevin Potts. Usually joins me to talk NFL draft stuff. Today, a little bit different. My guy Kevin here is also a big 49ers fan, and there's a ton going on with them, with the Brandon Aiyuk stuff. Kevin, what's going on, man?
How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on. It's good to catch some football.
Dude, it really is. We're almost here. Like the preseason is kind of like the appetizer. I'm ready to throw the appetizer away, though. I'm ready for the real thing, you know?
Oh, yeah. You get the first quarter and start to know none of the names in the game you're watching. You're like, okay, let's get to the real stuff now, please.
But for you, like you do know the names of the guys that no one else knows because you've been doing this draft coverage. So is there a guy for the Colts? I'm kind of curious where when the starters come out and like the third string guys are in, where you're like, oh, I remember that guy. I liked him coming out of, Texas or wherever.
Let's see. For the Colts.
Or really just any team in general.
For me, it's largely with my own team when I'm watching like the 49ers. Like we have an undrafted free agent out of Missouri and Cody Schrager, and I'm curious to see if he's going to make the roster. See how he's doing in special teams. I think if I had to pick one for the Colts, probably be Anthony Gould, just because with the Downs injury and all that stuff, maybe he's going to have to play a little bigger of a role. So seeing how he's doing is probably the interesting person on the Colts outside of obviously the obvious of Anthony Richardson, A.D. Mitchell, and Latu and those guys.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm really curious because you're a 49ers fan. What's it like waking up every day, or what's it like waking up one day where Brandon Aiyuk's like, I want to leave, and then the next day they're like, we have a contract for you, and he's like, cool, and then the next day he's like, you know what? No, I think I want to leave, and then the Patriots are like, we'll take you, and he's like, you know what? Never mind, I think I'm going to stay. What's that kind of roller coaster been like?
Exhausting. It's probably the one word for it. I wasn't surprised that it got a little messy. The 49ers have kind of done this for years with multiple contracts. Debo, Bosa wasn't easy. Kittle wasn't as well. So I knew there was going to be a more elongated process with maybe some media back and forth. But to the extent that we have gotten with the leaks from both sides, the social media posts, and just the general handling of the media and the reports on Twitter, basically rewording the same thing day in and day out with the term breaking in front of it, has been kind of annoying, especially when we get to this point in the season. Like you said, we're gearing up for the season. Everyone's ready to just actually start watching some football. Having a contract like this linger over a team, especially a team with the expectations that San Francisco has, is not the most fun.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Substack Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns, also a 49ers fan. If Brandon Aiyuk was to get moved, it's such an interesting thing because it seems like they're headed towards a contract, but at the same time, I feel like we've been here before in like the last 2 weeks. And so if they were to wind up moving him, I know that they asked for like 2 first-round picks. My thing is they're trying to win right now. Like, do you really want to move him for something that you're not going to get until next season?
Yeah, that's why the timing of this doesn't really make a lot of sense. If they wanted to move him and not pay the market price and they traded him back in March, got some picks for the draft to help him for the season, totally fine. We've seen that all the time. Tyreek Hill got moved in a similar fashion. A.J. Brown. The Niners did it with DeForest Buckner. They moved him, got a first, got his replacement. Waiting till August makes it tricky because you're not going to get the value. And some of the rumor trades looked pretty good. The Patriots and the Browns offers with like guys like Amari Cooper, Josh Uche could contribute right away. The Steelers don't seem to have that, which is why we've gotten this report of 49ers looking for a third team. Can we flip these picks from the Steelers into a receiver? Because they're going to need to add a receiver if they were to trade Brandon Aiyuk, which is why I think this is stalled. And like you said, leaning more towards a contract, because I think the 49ers looked around the league and realized we can't replace him close to any type of flair that we're going to get by moving Brandon Aiyuk. So maybe it's just better to cave a little bit and try and get this deal done, but we still don't know, obviously.
How has, I hope I have his name right, how has Ricky Pearsall fared, kind of the first round receiver that they took this year? Do you know how he's looked in training camp? Because if he's looked good, then I'm assuming the 49ers would be a little more willing to move Aiyuk.
He has been hurt. So that
Okay.
creates another wrinkle to it. He's been good when he played, but I believe he's dealing with a shoulder injury. And today or yesterday was his first day back at practice. So there hasn't been a lot of reps for him. Which is a big reason I think they're looking at their wide receiver core, because they're seeing some of these veterans or other rookies that have to play in these preseason games and go, oh, if we trade Brandon Aiyuk and anyone gets hurt, we are absolutely screwed on that front.
Okay, fair enough. I have to be honest. I don't think it fully matters what the 49ers do. I firmly believe that they won't make the playoffs this year, which puts me on the outside in of a lot of people. I think that they're old, more 30-year-olds on their roster than anyone else. McCaffrey's taken a lot of hits these past couple of years. Noisy offseason. Am I crazy in thinking that there's a real chance that the 49ers miss the playoffs?
I think if you look at it through the lens of injury concerns, I don't think you're crazy. This, like you said, is a very old team. I believe they average an age of 27, which is the oldest in the NFL. And they were one of the healthiest teams in all of football this past year when they made it to the Super Bowl. And they've had injury concerns, a lot of these guys in years past. Back in 2020, it completely derailed their season. So if guys get hurt, this is a very top-heavy team. This is what happens. You pay a lot of stars. I do see it falling apart. If they are completely healthy, with or without Brandon Aiyuk, I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. Maybe not completely healthy, but generally healthy, they're going to make the postseason. I think the concerns of losing a guy like Aiyuk or just some of those injuries racking up would be more in the postseason, where maybe they bow a little earlier than the record would indicate. But as long as they don't have half their roster decimated by injuries, I'd be surprised to see them not make the playoffs.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns. Substack, head over to substacks.com and subscribe to that newsletter. You do really good stuff. My other thing with the 49ers potentially not making the playoffs is the NFC is just so much better. It's amazing when all of the good quarterbacks end up in the AFC and all those teams are good. Those NFC teams can rebuild a lot quicker. You know, like I'm looking around and like the Packers, like they're a Super Bowl threat. The Lions are a Super Bowl threat. I think the Rams are going to be awesome. Like if I had to pick a team to come out of the NFC today, I would pick the Rams. So what do you think about just the depth of the NFC this year compared to last year?
I think it's a lot better. I think especially when you look at these wild card options. Last year, the last wild card, and obviously the 4 seed in the NFC South, was kind of underwhelming to say the least. But like you said, the Packers look a lot better. I think the Bears look a lot better. You have some teams like the Commanders. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but they're improving. The NFC West, I think all 4 teams are pretty solid, even the Cardinals, who have struggled in recent years. So I do think this NFC, the floor has gotten a lot higher. I still think there is a lot of issues at the top outside of San Francisco and Detroit. I think are going to be fine, assuming obviously we talked about San Francisco, as long as they stay healthy. The Cowboys and Eagles, I think they'll be fine in the regular season. It's more of a postseason issue I have with them. But I do agree that the overall NFC is better. I still think we're a year away from it becoming any sort of gauntlet for some of these teams that have sat at the top for the past couple of years.
That makes sense because a lot of the quarterbacks in the NFC, outside of like Stafford, Purdy, they're a little bit younger. So I think you're right in the idea that we're a year away from it being a real gauntlet when Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels get a year under their belts. And I would add J.J. McCarthy to that list, but he's out for the year. The Vikings just going through it right now. What are your thoughts kind of on them as a team? I know I'm disappointed because I felt like they had acquired a decent amount of talent. I thought they were going to be just a really fun team to watch. Kevin O'Connell being one of the better young offensive minds in the NFL. So I guess what are kind of your feelings on the Vikings? Are you disappointed? Are you like still a Sam Darnold believer when you're like, I'm ready to see Sam Darnold play football? How do you kind of feel about the Vikings?
I mean, I think I'm bummed to start, right? Seeing McCarthy get hurt, no one wants that. I thought it was a great landing spot for him, landing with this offense that has a lot of good pieces. I thought it was going to be a lot of fun. I originally was pretty gung-ho about the Vikings. As I dug more into them for this year, I'm a little less optimistic. Outside of just the Sam Darnold stuff, they are just very injured right now. I mean, Addison just rolled his ankle. T.J. Hawkinson won't be ready for the start of the year. I do think, obviously, if Jettis, Aaron Jones, and a great offensive line play caller, that is going to lift your floor. But I think they're missing so much in secondary playmakers and on defense that when these injuries start to rack up, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I believe their over-under is 6.5 wins for the season. I think that's about right. I think they're a 6 or 7 win team. And I think next year is probably their best bet, which is why it's disappointing to see McCarthy get hurt. It would have been awesome to see the dude who probably needs some playing time to get in there, get his feet wet in the second half of the season. I just think they lack enough in this kind of crowded NFC wildcard to really push and make the playoffs, especially with these injuries racking up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought that they'd be a fringe playoff team before all the injuries, but now that they're kind of starting to rack up, I think they'll probably get off to a slower start, and that won't be great. I'd be lying though if I didn't say that I was intrigued at Sam Darnold. I think that he's kind of caught a tough break. Like he had a 5-year stretch where he had 6 different offensive coordinators. One of them was Adam Gase, who hasn't returned to the NFL. The other one was Matt Rule, who, is now back in college. So I think he's had a tough break with coaches. We've seen Geno Smith kind of find a career resurgence when he was 30. Baker Mayfield did it at 28. Is there any world where Sam Darnold has this kind of weird outbreak of a season where it's like, oh, this is the guy who was actually drafted 3rd overall and looks like a decent quarterback?
Yeah, I think there is. I don't know if he ever gets to a Geno level, maybe to a Baker, but I think he's going to be better than any Vikings quarterback last year, sans Kirk Cousins. Obviously, you listed all the issues that Darnold has gone through in his career, but if people remember, he had a really nice stint at the end of his Carolina career before Christian McCaffrey went down. He never really got his feet wet in San Francisco, but I thought that would have been a good spot to revamp his career if he ever got in. I think Minnesota is a very similar situation. Obviously, when healthy, they have a bunch of really good skill position players. It's a good offensive line, and Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic play caller. So, I don't think he's going to be like, oh, Pro Bowl quarterback, amazing. I think he can be a league average quarterback that runs an efficient offense, even if he has some issues in his play style, which in a league that's desperate for quarterbacks might get you a little bit of money when you're a free agent next year after the Vikings move on, if you can just keep this offense at a respectable level.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Once again, joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. I want to stay in the NFC. Last thing, and then we can kind of move over to the AFC. Does Judon being traded to the Falcons do anything for you? They're a little more interesting. Like they didn't have a pass rusher. Now they have a guy who's been pretty good for the past few years. What are kind of your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, it was good. It made me switch my prediction. I had the Bucks over them in that division. It made a 1-game flip for me, and that was a really big issue for this Falcons team even before Braylon Trice got hurt and tore his ACL, their 3rd-round pick out of Washington.
Yeah.
So adding Judon does give them that pass rusher they need. Problem is they probably need 2 more. There's just a lot of issues on this defense. You have obviously Judon, Grady Jarrett, AJ Terrell, and Jesse Bates, all fantastic. Every other person on that team is either unproven or just not very good on the defensive side of the ball, and they're a little thin in that wide receiving room. So while they're in a weak division, and I do expect them to win it now after the Judon trade, he doesn't move the needle enough for me where I think they're going to make any sort of noise in the NFC outside of just being that weak 4 seed.
Okay. Moving to the AFC, I do want to talk about the AFC South before I let you go. Did you get to watch the Colts at all in their first preseason game?
I had it on. I was able to watch the first couple drives with Richardson in, and then I kind of went about other things in my day. But I did tune in for a little.
That's what I did. I watched Richardson. As soon as he got pulled, I didn't pay nearly as much attention. Look, we didn't see a ton from Richardson, but what'd you kind of think?
He looked about what I expect. He looked like a dude who hadn't played a lot of football in a while because he got banged up. I thought it was good that he stood in the pocket, tried to make throws, but he had some accuracy issues. He left a crosser on the back hip that prevented from getting a 4th down. It looked like there might have been a couple miscommunications down the field, but it was a limited reps. He wasn't in there very long. Yeah, there were some accuracy concerns, but he looked about what you'd expect from a dude playing his first quote unquote actual football game in about 9-10 months.
Yeah, that's 308 days. I know the day count. However, that's like 10 months. That is 10 months. Perfect. What about just the AFC South as a whole? Last question here, and I'll let you go. Just, the Titans have made all of these offseason acquisitions, which I find kind of interesting. Like, it kind of feels like they're trying to win right now, even though they don't really know what Will Levis is. Everyone's super high on the Texans. I think Jacksonville had a quietly good offseason, bringing in Eric Armstead and Gabe Davis and, drafting Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round. Like, I think that Jacksonville roster is good. The Titans have made a lot of, acquisitions. Like, what do you think of just, I guess, the AFC South kind of as a whole?
I think it's one of the better divisions in football. I was joking with a buddy of mine the other day. It feels weird to say that the AFC South has 4 kind of scary teams, but I think it's true. Obviously, everyone loves the Texans based on what they did last year, and I think people expect them very good this year. Colts, everyone's sleeper team this year, according to every network. I still think they're a double-digit win team. We've talked a lot about here. Jaguars, I agree. They had a sneaky offseason. They do have some issues, especially on the offensive line, but you have a first-round receiver with a very good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence and some fun playmakers on that defense. That's a wild card team. And the Titans, like I said, they had this fun offseason. Still confused exactly what the plan is, but they added some really good players, and all of them are vets that bring that mean streak, that fit into the type of team that even if they win 6-7 games, every single one of their games they play is going to be close. They're the team when you're on a short week, I don't think you want to play because I think they can knock off any team on a given week, even if their overall record doesn't end up that good.
Okay, fair enough. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Breakdowns Substack. I lied to you because you brought up the fact that everyone is apparently sleeping on the Colts. How many people have to say that everyone is sleeping on someone for it to be considered that they're no longer being slept on? Because I'm with you. I've seen like every big time media person be like, everyone's sleeping on the Colts. And I'm like, you're the 20th person who said that. At what point is it no longer true?
Last week, I think it's at the point where you call them where people call them the sleeper team, and then project them to win 10 games, compete like a wild card, maybe frisky for the division. They did that last year. This was a 9-win team last year that was in playoff contention. It's not Colts being a sleeper unless you say maybe a conference championship, because then you're going on the higher end of expectations. Just pegging them to be a game or two better than they were last year and being a wild card hunt is not a sleeper team. That's just what they are, and it's why I think they're a good team.
Okay, that's really good. I like that. The standard has to be higher for them to be a sleeper. I like it. That's a good way to put it. Last thing for real here, when we were talking off the air, you mentioned that you were starting to work through some college players, trying to get kind of your big board ready for the college football season. What quarterbacks kind of stick out, and at what point in the year are we going to hear all these NFL draft guys make this leap of quarterbacks where it's like, yeah, Shedeur Sanders, he'll go like 10th. At what point are we going to be like, no, he's going number 1? At what point does that leap happen?
I think it's going to happen pretty early this year. This class, there's the 2 at the top, is Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck out of Colorado and Georgia, respectively. They both have seconds for me right now. They're the high floor. They're going to come in, operate your offense very well. But what that does is it leaves kind of a void at the top for guys to get pushed up. Sanders obviously has the fame and the hype, and I think he's already getting the push into the top 10 that he probably doesn't deserve at this point in time. But there's a lot of dudes with tools on big-time programs, Milroe in Alabama, Quinn Ewers, Texas, Drew Aller, Penn State, who look the part of an NFL quarterback. So I think guys that get off the hot starts in this year with that void of a top quarterback are going to get pushed up pretty early because there's really no clear QB1 that's like a bona fide star at this point in time.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers coming out of high school was like the highest graded prospect ever. In Texas, I think is going to be really good. Is there maybe a player at a smaller school that you really like that people aren't talking about heading into the college football season?
He's not currently at a smaller school, but Riley Leonard, the quarterback for Notre Dame, transferred from Duke this past offseason. And he didn't get to play much in 2023, but he was fantastic in 2022. He has all the tools in the world. He's a fantastic runner, former multi-sport athlete, just amazing with the ball in his hands. Got all the tools in the world. He just has struggled with some inconsistencies, particularly as a drop back passer. The injuries have not helped. But he's one of those guys, when you put on film and you see some of those highlight throws, where it's not, I'm driving a crazy ball to the sideline, but step up in the pocket, I'm calm, collected, delivered over the middle. Some of the reasons I liked Anthony Richardson, even when he had a smaller sample size, that I'm very excited to see now that Leonard is on a bigger stage in Notre Dame, if he can get fully healthy, find what should be a really good Notre Dame team, I think he can make a pretty big leap because he has those tools.
Okay, I'm interested to see how he looks given that Notre Dame has maybe the easiest schedule in the country. It's a cakewalk, man, but we'll see. I like Leonard as well. I was talking about him the other day. I think he's going to be pretty good up there for the good old Fighting Irish. Kevin, thanks for your time. You were great as always, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's a pleasure.
Dude. All right, man. I will talk to you later, dude. See you.
Yeah. Bye.
That is Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Breakdowns Substack. Head over substack.com. I believe his Substack is free. So if you're a nerd and you like film breakdowns and you like learning about who could potentially be an Indianapolis Colt next year, that is your guy. Check out his stuff. He does a really good job and he works really hard on it. When we come back here in 4 minutes, Colts, Cardinals, day one, joint practice. That happened yesterday. I will give you my thoughts when we return here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a great day. Thanks again to Kevin Potts for joining the show, talking about the drama going on up there in San Francisco, as well as some of the other stuff going on around the NFL. Had a blast with him as always. He also clarified to us what a sleeper is, which I am greatly appreciative of. Talked about how it's really more about the expectation. He's like these big-time media people saying that the Colts are a sleeper playoff team. He's like, that's not really a sleeper. If you're going to say that the Colts are a sleeper, you got to be like AFC title, which feels like a bit much for me. But if Anthony Richardson can perform at the same level that he did yesterday during the Colts joint practice with the Cardinals, then maybe this team can appear in the AFC title game. Anthony Richardson, by all accounts, by every report, by every video that we've seen, Anthony Richardson had a great day yesterday. In one-on-ones, sounds like the Colts receivers got open, and Anthony Richardson threw the ball well. In 11-on-11, the thing that matters the most, he was 6 for 8 with a touchdown. The touchdown was apparently a 30-yard throw to Michael Pittman Jr. That's a good sign, right? I think that in order for Michael Pittman to be considered a true number one wide receiver, he has to be a threat in the red zone. He has to be. And, it's nice hearing that in these 11-on-11 joint practices, Michael Pittman could potentially be that kind of guy. 7-on-7s reportedly went really well in addition to it. Okay, seems, like they executed some more big explosive plays. I know that Anthony Richardson had a 60-yard touchdown pass to Anthony Gould. The boy's fast. No surprise there whatsoever, given the speed that he has. Okay, it seems like they had a good day throwing the football yesterday. And Michael Pittman Jr. confirmed it after practice, talking about the connection that he and Anthony Richardson had.
Oh, yeah. I mean, AR was great today. I mean, from one-on-ones like to that last one. I mean, we completed every go ball that we threw today between me and him.
Michael Pittman Jr. there talking about the success that he and Anthony Richardson had yesterday, especially on those deep, explosive plays. It's great. Okay? And look, this is what should happen at practice. Okay? Like you should find success, even if you're practicing against, a different team and a different defense. I got to be honest, I don't put a ton of weight into how the Colts look in 7-on-7. I'm primarily concerned with 11-on-11 because 7-on-7 isn't real football. You can't tackle. Everyone knows that you're throwing the ball. There's no defensive line bearing down on the quarterback. It's not real football. But at the same time, I think you can learn a lot about receivers. Seems like they were able to create a lot of separation yesterday, which is important because, Anthony Richardson, not exactly the most accurate guy in the world. And I think that's really going to play a role in this Colts offense this year. Because he's not super accurate, you don't want to ask him to complete 7 passes every drive. Okay, I think there's going to be a real emphasis on the Colts converting on some big plays this year. Because, look, if you can have a 30-yard chunk play, it's so much easier. When we look at the best offenses in the NFL, they generate these big chunk plays. The Rams, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, right? It seems like every touchdown drive that they have some play that goes for 25 yards. It's an important aspect of being a productive NFL offense. And Shane Steichen knows that, and he had comments yesterday on the explosive plays that the Colts generated.
I think there's a lot of potential. We did a deep dive in the offseason, just trying to look at more explosive, trying to be more explosive in the pass game with obviously the weapons that we have and adding AD. It's been good. So you kind of saw that come to light a little bit today, and we just got to keep improving that.
Shane Steichen there talking about explosive plays and the importance of generating them. And I think we're going to see a bunch of them. The Colts have a lot of speed at wide receiver. Josh Downs is a 4.4 guy. Anthony Gould is a 4.3 guy. Adonai Mitchell is a 4.3 guy. There's a lot of speed and athleticism out wide. Alec Pierce is a deep threat. Okay, there's plenty of guys who can make plays down the field for the Colts this year, which should hopefully lead to an exciting offense that can really score some points. So the offense, like I said, had a good day yesterday. Hopefully that continues as, the joint practices continue today. Hopefully we see more and hear more of what we heard yesterday. Anthony Richardson, continuing to complete balls, and we continue to see these big explosive plays. The thing, though, that I was most excited about yesterday was something that I didn't see. All the Colts fans on Twitter going crazy, reacting to Anthony Richardson having a good day and the crazy catch that Adonai Mitchell made. Go to Twitter, search for Colts. It'll pop up pretty quickly. He had a pretty impressive, diving, turning the body catch in the end zone. Like I said, really impressive. Okay, like a lot of reactions to that. The thing, though, that I'm most excited about that happened yesterday was something that I did not see. I didn't see a single report about Anthony Richardson running the ball. That's awesome to hear. Okay, now after the practice, Shane Steichen came to the podium and he had a quote where he talked about how Anthony Richardson had a long run, right? But that was really it. It seems like Anthony Richardson was looking to stay in the pocket yesterday and throw the football, which is the most important thing. It is the most important thing because that's the thing that he has to get better at. The best quarterbacks in the NFL, as athletic and as capable as they are of running the ball, the best ones win games from the pocket. You have to be able to win from the pocket, and that's something that Anthony Richardson needs to work on. And I feel like that's something that he is working on. He said in his Kay Adams interview that he was working on his accuracy in the offseason. Yesterday, he didn't run a ton. Okay, like he's working on staying in the pocket and delivering the ball on time and on target, which is good. Like that's what practice is for. Okay, that is what practice is for. You should be able to stand in the pocket and work on the things that you aren't great at yet. We all know that Anthony Richardson is a capable runner, but we need to see him throw the ball in order to know that he's the long-term answer for the Colts at the quarterback position. Now, based off of the reports, the offense seems like they had a pretty good day. Defensive line also had a pretty great day. Okay? The defensive line absolutely dominated based off of everything that I've read and everything that I've heard. And while that defensive line dominated and got after Kyler Murray and put a lot of pressure on him, the Colts secondary, pretty horrendously bad. Okay, it seemed like exactly what I said after the preseason game. When the Colts got pressure, they were fine. But if they didn't, that secondary got absolutely torched, which isn't a surprise because we all know that this secondary is amongst the worst in the NFL. It really is. Okay, and it's sad and it's frustrating because there are guys available, free agents on the market that Chris Ballard could go get right now that would address some of these concerns. Here's a list of cornerbacks and safeties who could come and play for the Colts right now and make them better. At corner, Xavier Howard, Stephon Gilmore, and Adoree Jackson. All three of those guys could come in and be better than Dallas Flowers. All three of them. They're just sitting out there waiting to be picked up. And, our guy, Chris Ballard, just going to hang out. Like, no, we're good. We don't need him. We like our guys. I don't want to hear that, man. I don't like our guys. Our guys are an issue on the back end. How about we, maybe address that? When it comes to safeties, Justin Simmons, right? Been pounding the table for that guy. But there's also Micah Hyde, who had a very productive career in Buffalo. Jaron Kearse, a guy who's had success. All three of those guys could step in and be better options at free safety than Nick Cross. Okay? All six of those guys that I just listed come into Indianapolis and have an immediate impact on the success of this Colts team. Right? And, Chris Ballard, I would like to think that he knows this, but apparently he went on a different radio show here in Indianapolis and said that he liked the guys that they have on the back end, which is absurd. Doesn't make any sort of sense to me whatsoever. And so because he feels so good about, the Colts guys on the back end, they decided to go out yesterday and sign Greg Ward, a wide receiver, and edge rusher Derek Rivers. Now, look, I don't mind them adding another receiver, especially with the Josh Downs injury, but they didn't need another edge rusher. They needed help on the back end, still do need it. And Ballard just refuses to acknowledge it. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, but, I truly don't understand what Chris Ballard is doing when it comes to the back end of this defense. Okay, I don't know how many times you have to watch them suck to realize that you need to make some changes on the back end. While Chris Ballard was on some local indie radio yesterday, he went over a little bit of how they're going to play Anthony Richardson throughout the rest of the preseason. They will likely not play him on Saturday, and they will play him for a half next Thursday, so a week from today. I'm cool with this. I think there's a certain amount of snaps and plays that you want young quarterbacks to play in the preseason just to know how they look heading into the actual season. And I think a little bit over a half feels like the right amount plus the time that you spend in joint practices against other players. And so I like how they're breaking this up as well. Play 2 drives in the first game, get your feet wet, get used to being out there first game and 308 days, all that stuff. Okay, get him out there for a couple drives, let him throw a few balls, bring him back over, right? Just let him get his feet wet. See what he looks like against, a real team under the lights and all those things. And then from there, you move into joint practices, right? Against, a different team, not playing against your own guys. And then from there, they film all these things. From there, you can go back, you can watch the film and say, hey, Anthony, you did this well. You didn't do this well. Let's work on these things this week. And then on Thursday, you run him out there, see if he can, adjust a little bit to some of the mistakes that he made in joint practices and let him play for a full half, right? Allow him to get some rhythm, before you head into week 1 of the season. Can't wait to watch him play for a full half. Not surprised he's not going to play on Saturday. That makes, a lot of sense. It's one of the few things that the Colts are doing right now that actually makes sense. Speaking of making sense, Indianapolis will host the 2025 WNBA All-Star Weekend. The Caitlin Clark effect continues. Okay, the WNBA returns tonight. The Fever return to action tomorrow when they host the Phoenix Mercury at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Can't wait to see how Caitlin Clark looks. Okay, I think she's going to be better than she was before the Olympic break because rest does wonders for players. I think we'll see less turnovers. Okay, like she's had time to rest, watch film, go back, see what she did well, see where she struggled, make those kind of mental adjustments. I think that we're going to see a significant dip in the turnovers. Like, she was at 5.5 before the Olympic break. I'm expecting her to be at closer to like 2.5, 3 maybe after the break, right? Because she's had time to rest, and I think that when we think about rest, we think about it from this physical standpoint because it's important. But mentally, I think is really where she needed the break because when you're playing point guard, you're making a million decisions every game that you play. The physical rest, I do think we'll see show up as well. I think she's going to come back a better shooter than she was to start the season. She only shot, a little over 32.5% from 3 before the Olympic break. I think she'll come back, be closer to that, 36, 37% range, which will be good, right? Because who doesn't want to watch her knock down shots from 30 feet away? I know that I do. So we'll see how that goes. When we come back here in 4 minutes, we got a take. Been sitting on the fence, officially getting off the fence. I'm going to tell you what that take is when we come back here in 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
That's right. The best takes, stories, and entertainment. And, closing the show with a nice little take today. Sometimes, we're in Indianapolis. The show is supposed to be about Indianapolis sports. But all in all, it's a sports show. And if I have a sports take, I want to get it off my chest. I do. Been toying with this idea for the last month or so. And I have to say it. The San Francisco 49ers will not make the playoffs this year. They will not make the playoffs. It's been noisy in San Francisco all offseason. I'm not just talking about the traffic. Brandon Aiyuk, he's going to get traded today. Oh, no, we're going to extend him. Oh, no, we're going to send him to New England. Oh, no, he doesn't want to go to New England. We're going to send him to Pittsburgh. Oh, no, we're going to extend him. Back and forth, back and forth. It's been noisy. It's been loud. And noisy off seasons never bode well for that team. Okay? It bothers me. I don't like it when teams are noisy in the offseason. It doesn't usually point to good things. That's why if I was you, I would fade the Jets. Okay, and if that doesn't bother you, if you're of the opinion that he just wants a new contract, it's pretty normal, then okay, it's fine, whatever. Let me throw some other numbers your way then. That should bother you. The 49ers are old. The 49ers have more players on their roster that are 30 years or older than any other roster in the NFL. They are old. 30 is that number where players kind of start to decline. And that's also, the number where players start to get hurt. Older players get hurt more often, and older players take longer to recover when they're hurt. Okay, George Kittle, who's battled so many injuries throughout his entire career, right? George Kittle, he's 30. This dude gets hurt every single year. Do you really think that he's going to stay healthy? No way. Trent Williams, who's been beaten up over these past couple seasons, he's 36. He's the oldest player on that roster. Do you really think that he's going to stay healthy? Deebo Samuel, 28, with a lengthy injury history. Looks like a CVS receipt. Okay? You really think he's going to stay healthy this year? I don't. Christian McCaffrey, 28. Lengthy injury history. That's why he's not in Carolina anymore, because he couldn't stay healthy when he was playing for the Panthers. This guy, former number 2 overall pick, right? Dynamic, awesome. Dude doesn't really stay healthy, and the 49ers had good injury luck last year. When we look at this core of players, McCaffrey, Kittle, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, because that's what makes that offense go, not Brock Purdy. Okay, when you look at those guys, they were pretty healthy last year. Were there some bumps and bruises? Did some of them miss a couple games? Yes. But for the most part, that last year was the healthiest that core has been as a unit. Okay? And that's not happening another year in a row. And I want to continue talking about McCaffrey because he is the engine of that offense. It's not Brock Purdy. Okay, Brock Purdy is propped up by Kyle Shanahan's genius, and he's propped up by Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, the best left tackle in football, and Trent Williams, and the second best tight end in football, and George Kittle. Right? But the main guy is Christian McCaffrey, and he's been through it. He's had over 300 touches these last 2 years between receptions and carries. Okay, the last time that he had back-to-back seasons with over 300 touches, he got hurt the following year. Okay, he's going to get hurt. I can guarantee you that it's going to happen. Running backs age quickly. It's part of why NFL franchises don't want to pay them. Okay, the hits get racked up so fast. Okay, and for McCaffrey, he's been banged on a lot these last couple years, and he is that offense. And I just don't see a world where he stays healthy enough to get 300 touches again. It's not going to happen. He's not going to last. Okay, when the best player on your team is hurt, you're not going very many games. All right, and Christian McCaffrey is the best player on that offense. The other thing is that the NFC is no longer terrible. You know, it's amazing when all of the good quarterbacks end up in the AFC. the NFC just rebuilds really quickly because they're bad and they draft at the top. Okay, that's the way that it goes. The top 2 picks in this last year's NFL draft, Bears and Commanders, right? And they took the best 2 quarterbacks. The NFC is going to be much deeper this year. Like when you looked at the NFC last year, there were a lot of question marks. Are the Packers going to be good? I like the Lions roster, but how good are they really going to be? The Rams, I guess they'll be interesting. It was very clearly the 49ers and everybody else. That's not the case this year. The 49ers aren't even the best team in their own division. That division is much tougher. Like they're going to have 6 tough games. Like the Rams, who are the best team in that division and the best team in the NFC, that's 2 tough games when you have to go play against the best coach in the NFC and the best quarterback in the NFC and Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. Right? And then you have to play the Cardinals, who are going to be better this year than last year just because, Kyler Murray is probably going to play more than 8 games. Okay. And then you got to go play the Seahawks, who are going to be nasty on that defensive side of the ball by bringing in, new head coach McDonald, who I think is going to be awesome. Okay. Like this NFC is so much deeper. And then when we get outside the NFC West, the teams are also better. Like the Packers are a legitimate Super Bowl threat. If Jordan Love is as good as he was the second half of last season, I like Matt LaFleur. The Packers are really young. They've got a lot of really good young players on that roster. The Lions bring basically everybody back from last year. The coaching staff is back. Jared Goff is back. The receivers are back. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, who I know is a little banged up right now. They're bringing everybody back. The Lions are a legitimate Super Bowl threat. They probably should have beaten the 49ers in the NFC title game last year. The Eagles, if these coordinators are better, guess what? Super Bowl threat. The Cowboys, they're going to figure out the CeeDee Lamb contract. They're talented. They'll be a tough out. Yeah, the Commanders, they're rebuilding, but Jayden Daniels is intriguing. If he's good, then the Commanders will be good. Everyone seems to be really high on the Bears. The Bears are going to be good. The NFC is no longer a cakewalk. And when you pair that with the high likelihood that the 49ers are going to battle a lot of injuries from their best players, I don't think it's out of the question that they're going to miss the playoffs. It's going to happen. The 49ers will not make the playoffs this year because they're going to be banged up. And I just don't think that, as good as Brock Purdy was last year, I don't think he's good enough to succeed without those core 4 guys in Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Trent Williams, and the main star, Christian McCaffrey. Just don't think he's good enough to do it. That in the NFC is a ton better. Speaking of the NFC, I wanted to throw the Vikings in there when talking about teams that would be better this year. Can't do that after all these injuries that feel like they all just happened yesterday. McCarthy out for the season. Hawkinson got hurt, won't be available early. Jordan Addison got hurt yesterday. Another receiver got hurt. They've had a couple corners get hurt. And it's disappointing because I thought that the Vikings were going to be really good. And, they ended up not being that way just because of all of these injuries that have happened over these past couple of days. So no matter what happens to the Colts this year, going to be tough to have it worse than the Minnesota Vikings with all their injuries. Just trying to be nice. I sent a bunch of bubble wrap to Justin Jefferson. They need to put him in that because he's next on the list here. So we'll see how that goes. John M. with a great question on the YouTube chat. Great question. Gun to head, who would you take as your starting quarterback to start your franchise, Jayden Daniels or Anthony Richardson? I would take Anthony Richardson. I think Jayden Daniels is just too small. Okay, he weighs 170 pounds. He is tiny. And you have to have body armor to play quarterback in the NFL or else you won't last. And so, while, Jayden Daniels is reportedly having a really good joint practice against the Dolphins. I don't care. I don't care that he's really fast. I don't care that he has a big arm. I think that he and Anthony Richardson are pretty similar. The only difference is Anthony Richardson is 250 pounds. And even though Richardson has gotten hurt a lot in his career, I just don't think that 170-pound quarterbacks last in the NFL. I don't think that happens. If you want to submit other questions, head over to YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, subscribe. You can drop whatever sort of question you want in the chat. And if it's a good one and I see it, I will answer it. So make sure you head over there, Indie Sports Ticket on YouTube, subscribe, check out the live stream. Now, continuing on talking about sports, the Little League World Series has started. It's the best. I love the Little League World Series. It's so just pure. It's everything that sports are supposed to be. And I just, oh man, I love it so much. Like, I think games start at 1:00 again today. And I will be watching. We're going to turn it on here in the studio because, it's all about, it's what sports should be about, especially for kids. Okay, like when you watch the Little League World Series, like it is about winning, but there's definitely this emphasis on having fun. And look, when you're 10, 11, 12 years old playing a sport, like you should undoubtedly care, about winning, but it should primarily be about fun. Like I hear about all these different, travel teams and all this nonsense that happens with parents. And it's like you show up at the Little League World Series, everyone there is a volunteer. There's a major emphasis on sportsmanship, which is a bit much for me sometimes. But, I think that their heart is in the right place with that. And ultimately, like, it's about having fun. And that's what sports, especially at that level when you're, 9, 10, 11, 12, like when you're that young, like that is what sports should be about. Because we call them sports, but what they really are games. And games are supposed to be fun. Okay, like when you do family game night with your family, it's about having fun, and yeah, so love the Little League World Series. You should watch it. It's a fantastic sporting event. It's one of the best ones out there, and I will be undoubtedly locked in on everything that happens in the Little League World Series. And you should be locked into everything that happens on the Dan Dockett Show coming your way here in 5 minutes. Kent Sterling, I know, joining us at 2. Should be a great show coming from Dan the Man Dockett. That's coming your way in 5 minutes. Thanks for tuning into The Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 11 to noon. Head over to YouTube, subscribe, watch the live stream, join the chat, do all that fun stuff. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.